If you have ever experienced anxiety, then you know just how uncomfortable it can be. Your heart rate starts to quicken, maybe your breathing becomes a bit more shallow, maybe you feel tingly throughout your body, or you feel a lot of muscle tension. You can even start to feel nauseous. When we don't know that this is a normal protective mechanism in the body and we don't have a name for it, then it can kind of lead to its own vicious anxiety cycle. Today, we're going to learn why anxiety is so uncomfortable and how it's actually trying to protect us. Let's dive in. The discomfort that we feel when we are anxious comes from our body's warning system. And this warning system lives in something called the sympathetic nervous system, which is just one branch in the autonomic nervous system. I'm not going to go too much into detail into this today. I'm probably going to do a whole video on the nervous system later on. But today, I just want you to be just a little bit familiar with the sympathetic nervous system in particular, because that's where anxiety lives. Actually, let me know in the comments down below if you'd like to learn more about the nervous system as a whole, and I'll get started on that based on your comments. And while you're at it, please do go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the little bell. It really will help this mental health education reach more people, so thank you. You may know our body's warning response as the fight, flight, freeze system. So if I have confused you at all by calling it a warning system or a warning response, fret not, they are the same thing. The purpose of this warning system, or the fight, flight, freeze system, is ultimately to protect you, to help you run away or flee or fight whatever is going to keep us safe, depending on the particular threat. And we really don't have conscious control over which avenue our body uses or decides to use to protect us. It's kind of going based off of, information from the past, ways that it has effectively protected us before, and also just what it is gauging from the current situation. And it takes all of this information into consideration when it decides, I'm going to run away, I'm going to fight, I'm going to shut down, because that's what's going to be most protective for me. So let's start to break down all of these uncomfortable physical sensations and the purpose that they have in protecting us. Let's start with breathing. Now, when our warning system switches on, our airways actually relax, which allows us to breathe in a faster manner, which is something that we would need if we were running away or fighting. When we breathe normally, there's a balance between our oxygen levels and our carbon dioxide levels. And as our breathing becomes quicker, our oxygen levels will increase. We're taking in more air. And when we are physically active, we're actually exhaling more carbon dioxide levels. So they're still pretty even when we're physically active. The discomfort that we feel actually comes from an imbalance of these levels. So if we're breathing quicker, we're taking in more oxygen, but if we're not physically active, our carbon dioxide levels kind of remain the same. This is because we're taking in more oxygen, but our body's not actually using this extra oxygen. If it's not using the extra oxygen, it's not going to produce more carbon dioxide, which means that the carbon dioxide that we have is actually being expelled faster than it's being produced. This imbalance between oxygen and carbon dioxide is what leads to feeling lightheaded, that tingly feeling in our fingers and our toes, and our palms becoming clammy, all those types of symptoms. Our heart rate also increases in order to get more blood flow to our muscles so that they can work harder if we're fighting or running away. It's important to note here that increased heart rate can also come from other things like too much caffeine, or maybe low blood sugar, high blood sugar, and also high blood pressure, which is why managing our thoughts and our perceptions based on what we're experiencing is so important, so we can know what's going on truly, and we can respond to it in the best way that's appropriate. When our body is in an anxious state, its primary function is to protect us. We know this. But one way that it does that is by basically turning off all of the systems in the body that it deems unnecessary for survival. So for one, it's going to try to get rid of as much dead weight as possible, which is why maybe we need to use the bathroom a bit more when we're really anxious. It's trying to get rid of dead weight that we don't necessarily need if we were running away or fighting. Another act of this is to slow down digestion, and when digestion becomes slowed, that's when we start feeling an upset stomach or even a bit of nausea. You may also notice maybe dryness of the mouth. because it's inhibiting our digestive processes, because we don't necessarily need to be digesting things if we're trying to run away. Our reproductive systems are also impacted by this protective mechanism. So if we're stressed, or if we've been stressed for a really long time, we might notice a decrease in our sex drive, and also it might be more difficult for us to become pregnant. So clearly there is a ton going on underneath the surface. Our bodies are incredibly smart, and they're going to do everything in their power to keep us safe and to keep us alive. So if we can acknowledge that these uncomfortable physical sensations are really just a normal bodily process to protect us, then our anxiety can decrease quite drastically, because we're no longer anxious then about the symptoms that we're experiencing because our brain is identifying a threat. We then have a new perspective and can go into it with that new perspective. My next video is going to dive into how we can actually turn off this protective mechanism. Now, we're not going to turn it off forever, but we can kind of tone it down or turn it off for a time being. We can remind the body and the brain that we're safe. So we're going to go into that next time. We'll talk about a couple of different techniques that can help us get there. And so make sure to hit that little bell so you don't miss out and you get notified of the next video coming out on Wednesday. I hope to see you there.